One of the most frustrating aspects of tabletop role-playing games for many players is that you need to have a role-playing party in order to participate. You can't effectively play as a solo player. For those that do have a group, there's another layer of complexity that comes in the social drama of trying not to beat your friends up too badly while also having a good time and feeling like an adventurer. Inheritors, my new tabletop role-playing skirmish system, solves that problem by giving the enemies a logic system that is easy to follow for all players, whether you're the ones fighting against them or, in this system, role-playing the monsters. Inheritors does not have a dungeon master or a game master to guide the enemies as a kind of central flow point. Rather, everybody shares in the role for activating and role-playing as the monsters when they're not busy playing their own heroes. With Inheritor's active defense system, there's always something to be done, so there's probably not going to be a player sitting there picking their nose, waiting for their turn to come in the next 15, 20, 30 minutes while a single game master sorts out one dimension of combat with a player. To make that concrete and tangible for you, I want to demonstrate how the enemy AI system or the enemy logic system works in Inheritors. It's fairly straightforward. What I wanted to do is I wanted to capture the essentials of how an enemy should behave based on its type, and then encode that in a few types of enemy tags or creature tags, so that if you're the person role-playing the monster, like this guy, you can see exactly what this verminkin scav should be doing. So a verminkin scav is first of all light avoidant, and then they're a swarmer. That tells the player who's playing them that the verminkin is going to avoid very bright sources of light, which is a critical effect on some weapons and also the effect of other spells. And then they're always going to move toward one another when engaging in combat because that's where they get the best bonuses. When you use the creature tagging system in Inheritors, you don't really have to think about the dynamics of, well, I've already attacked this guy 3 or 4 times, he's low in health. Nope, you have a character encoded for you in that creature's stats that tells you, here's what they do, and then you role-play that out. But let's take a look at how 3 different types of creatures might act in a particular combat encounter. We'll start with our stable, steady, true verminkin scav, here represented by what I think is a Warhammer Old World Skaven, maybe? I don't know. I bought a box of those at a garage sale because they were perfect for my purposes. Okay, we have 2 verminkin scavs here on the table. They are going to move to attack our inheritor. For the purposes of demonstration, let's say that the inheritor has already activated, and so he is done with his part in this particular combat sequence. The next creature to activate is going to be an enemy because heroes always go first unless there's a boss on the board. So this enemy is going to move in and attack. He's doing that because now he's within 2 inches of his ally, which means that this one will benefit from that swarmer tag. But let's get into the actual combat encounter here. It's time to throw some dice. The spear that verminkin scav is using has 2 d6s on it, so he's going to roll those at the same time that the inheritor activates to defend himself. And hey, look at this, we have some splits. So the verminkin scav is going to stab with his critical success there as a strike, but the inheritor is smart and canny enough to block it with his critical success, so those cancel each other out. And then we have a failure, and we have a successful strike here. But the inheritor used his successful strike already. He had a shield in his defense. I suppose I should have declared which one was which, but for the sake of being fair, I'm going to say this was his shield, so he can't use that to further deal damage back. Now what happens is the swarmer tag activates. And an enemy that's a swarmer activates, ignoring the order of activation, another creature with a swarmer tag within 2 inches. So within about 10 feet, this guy immediately is going to jump into battle. He's not going to go for some other creature on the board. He's going to move right here because that's that swarmer tag activating. And now he would activate. So we're going to roll those dice again. The inheritor is going to activate to defend himself because he always can. And we have an interesting scenario here. The swarmer rolled 2 failures. but the inheritor rolled 2 successes. So one of those has to be discarded because it's the defensive roll for his shield. The other one he's going to deal in turn to do 2 damage and kill that scav out of hand. And so that is how the Swarmer tag activates. Another thing this inheritor might do if he had a mob of these guys on him is he might activate some sort of very bright light source, which then would tell the role players that these guys need to skididdly doot right off the board. In this case, we've got a couple of Hyenid warriors types. So we've got a hunter and we have a reaver. The Hyenid hunter here, he's the weaker of the two, although it's really by degrees. And we have a Hyenid reaver, which is a berserker style enemy. So the Hyenid reaver, when he activates, he has, as you can see here on the screen, Bloodthirsty and Swarmer. The Bloodthirsty tag is very dangerous if it can be activated the right way. So actually, if we're thinking about the enemies they always want to swarm, it would make sense to choose this one. Oops, we're knocking stuff down. We're demolishing the house. Back up there, treasure chest. We haven't earned you. This guy would hop down if I'm the activating player thinking these guys want to fight in packs, because logically, if he moves here, it won't activate. But if this guy jumps here, now he can activate that Swarmer tag. So he's bloodthirsty, which means that he is going to roll his dice and always apply them as a success, or as a strike rather, never as a block. So in this case, he had that 1 success. We're going to counter with a success from the inheritor, and the rest of them are going to get discarded. So now that Swarmer tag would activate. It's a little bit tight to see here on the camera, but that's about 2 inches. He would jump in, and we'd have a very similar teat, although he only has the 1 war axe, so he's only rolling twice. Ooh, snake eyes. This guy's lucky. So in this case, the inheritor would be able to deal damage back. So in no case does a creature with the Bloodthirsty tag apply a successful attack or defense roll as a block. It's always a strike to deal damage first, right? So that's the Bloodthirsty tag. Another creature encounter that we might have is with something that is avoidant. So an avoidant enemy, like this Bane Crawler here, is going to constantly try to stay in ranged combat rather than closing up close. So if the inheritor had made his move to get here, as the role-playing player, I would know I'm backing up. Regardless of the creature's intelligence or mind score in inheritors, that creature's avoidant and that tag goes first, so it backs up first. That's what it wants to do, so that it can shoot webs, or whatever its attack is, down at our inheritor. Another creature tag that you might encounter while fighting to survive in the streets of Amidia is the Frenzied tag. This is sometimes attached to a really feral character, or it's attached to a character that's taken a lot of damage and is acting in just base primal self-preservation. But with the feral tag, it means that it will attack indiscriminately whatever is closest to it. So these guys in this setup, they might be the closest to it, and so whether or not they're Banespawn and allies, it's going after them because it's frenzied. If he's a little bit closer and I'm eyeballing that as the role-playing character, I'm going after him now. A wise adventurer can use a frenzied character to take care of a lot of small enemies on the board. Just by backing up instead of attacking mindlessly, now you've sicked him on those 2 guys to bind them up, and you can go about your business of doing whatever it is that you really want to do with your turn. There are more types of creature tags that determine how characters act and react in the game. Learning them is part of learning the strategy that will enable you to survive in the dead halls of Amidia. But it's also not the end. The idea here is to give you enough to begin building your own monsters and your own types of encounters, but as you're playing, if you find that there's an archetype or a behavioral pattern that you can put together into a creature tag, you are encouraged to add it into your game to bring it to life on your table. That's the beauty of the creature tagging system. It allows solo players to be able to access the story because they're not defeating themselves. The enemies have a system of behavior that's reliable, consistent, and easy to run. but it also works inside a group when you might not know, if you're not an experienced game master, how to balance things out to be fair. You can just follow the rules. So that's it for the creature tagging system. There's a whole bunch of these. Sometimes characters can even earn them too as a result of diseases that you might contract or particular types of injuries. There's more to explore inside the core rulebook. If you're into this idea, I encourage you to back it on Kickstarter. It's running from October through November, and then the book will be available in the spring of 2024. And it's really just the starting place for what I hope is an excellent addition to your gaming table. That's it for now. I'm LR Knight. This is Inheritors. Stay fierce.